Strength Warehouse presents Go Heavy or Go Home podcast. I am your host, Nate Boley. In this podcast, we talk about strength, fitness, nutrition, and all things Strength Warehouse related. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to be introducing a coach and a new seminar that we're going to be holding for endurance athletes and why strength matters. So I'm just going to go ahead and give the floor to the coach that's going to be running it.
Hi, my name is Matt Allen.
Welcome.
I am a resident here in Bend, Oregon, and an athlete here at Strength Warehouse. And outside of the gym, I'm a cycling performance coach. I run a company called the Velocity Depot, and I've been in performance cycling for over 20 years now.
That's awesome. When did you, and you just started kind of doing this full time, correct?
Yeah, I've been coaching since like 2007.
Okay, long time.
But I've had a day job on the side
For sure.
For most of that time.
Have you always thought of your day job as your side job?
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's a great mindset to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I worked for a little over 9 years for a software company that specializes in analytics for cycling.
Okay,
and
cool.
it's one of the main, it is the main platform for coaches to interface with endurance athletes. It's called Training Peaks.
Okay, and that's what you use?
And that's what I use today.
Okay.
And I was a part of that for, I was a product manager there, ran the customer support team, did a lot of things there for 9 years.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that.
And so, that's where I actually got introduced into software. I went on to have a career for a while in data science and worked for some other companies after my time at Training Peaks. But that was, so my background is deep in the
100%.
analytics side of things, and the vast majority of Tour de France teams use that software.
That's great.
I've consulted with Olympic teams, tour teams.
So you have a lot of credentials.
Yeah. So I've gone deep into the physiology and science side of things. Still, and have always stayed very current there. So I've been I've raced at a high level, nationally and internationally.
That's great.
And
this last year you podiumed like every race.
Yeah, I had a good season. And I raced for a team out of Colorado, Stages Cycling. And we did a good handful of national level races, traveled around, and did quite well.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you contribute some of that success to sticking with strength training?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm now a master's athlete. I'm 42.
I was going to say that.
I'm 42.
40 puts you into masters, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. There's a little gray area there. Depends on what race you're at. Sometimes it's 35 plus, but most of the time it's 40 plus.
In the powerlifting world, they do sub-masters. It's 35 to 39, and then your masters 1 after 40. So
very similar.
Almost there.
Very similar. Very similar. I think strength training is really important as an endurance athlete, particularly for those that are 35 plus.
Yeah, I totally
it becomes
agree.
super important
for not only like just power output, but like well-rounded health.
Yeah,
and strength.
absolutely.
Yeah,
both longevity and well-being as a human, but also as an athlete to keep doing what we're doing.
Sure.
At a high level.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's a medium level. I mean, you're going to be finding that you're going to have muscle imbalances and weaknesses that are going to limit what you're going to be able to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just about increasing your sort of robustness in terms of preventing injury or restoring joint health. It also comes down to bone density and hormonal health, improving your sleep quality, which then improves your recovery from your endurance training. Mm-hmm. All these things can be linked back to strength work.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Also, as endurance athletes, whether it's cycling or running or whatever, we're very single plane in our movement.
Yeah.
And so that creates all kinds of imbalances
100%.
that need to then be corrected. And if we don't, they'll start to sort of just, you get this evolving cycle that just goes season after season and just gets a little bit worse, and then all of a sudden you've got, it's going to take a lot to unwind all that.
Yeah.
Not to mention that, the vast majority of endurance athletes in the U.S. also have day jobs, even
Yes.
at the high level. Very few have the privilege to do it full time and
Sure.
be paid for it.
Yeah.
And
most
as
of those
such,
are probably sitting in a chair.
Exactly. That's where I was
exact
going.
same position
Exactly.
that they're cycling in.
Exactly.
Right?
So you're
Yeah.
sitting at a computer, sitting at a desk,
Yeah.
in a hunched over position, and then if you're a cyclist, you're then going and doing your free time is spent doing workouts in a hunched over position.
Yep.
Well, you get all kinds of issues that will eventually come up because of that, and so
100%.
strength training is an amazing modality to address some of these issues.
When we talked last week, I think, or that's actually 2 weeks ago now, because we were gone out of the country for a week, so my whole perspective on time is gone, right, a little bit. But you're talking specifically what we do here can really complement what they're doing out there.
Absolutely.
Can you go into a little bit about what you were talking about then?
Sure. So the way the class structure works here really complements, in my opinion, the ideal way of structuring a strength workout for an endurance athlete.
Yeah.
You come in, the first 15 minutes or so of the class is a dynamic warm-up. And I'm a big fan of working in some breath work into that as well.
Totally awesome.
During the dynamic warm-up. And then you move into your main set. And the main sets is squat, bench, and deadlift. Which are three of the main arch types of movement.
Yeah.
You also have, overhead press and carrying, and there's others, anti-rotation. There's a few other things that also get worked in, but that covers the bases.
Yeah,
and
100%.
It becomes a very efficient way of getting a very high quality workout.
Yeah.
And focus on those three primary. Those are one
You're going
each
to use
day.
a lot of muscle, all the joints when you're doing these big movements. So it's very efficient because you're only having to do a few reps and a few sets.
Exactly.
But you're working the entire body.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can get into endurance athletes don't need a bench, and I will argue till I'm blue in the face that is absolutely not true.
Yeah.
The bench press is a whole body movement. It is probably the most technique driven of those three.
Yeah, 100%.
And it is super underrated in terms of the benefit it gives you through multiple joints.
I agree.
And
all the way from your feet on the floor.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not about just building big pecs at all.
But that's a huge, that's something that you want, right?
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot more to it in terms of shoulder position and
just being able to get your scapulas and shoulders in the correct place. So many people don't even know how to do that.
Yep.
And I show them, they're like, whoa, my shoulders stop hurting when I bench press.
Absolutely. And guess what? How does that translate to cycling? Well, if you have better control of your scapulas, you have better shoulder position.
Yep.
You're going to, in the cycling position, you're going to have better room for your diaphragm to fully expand. Well, guess what? Cycling's an endurance sport that requires a lot of aerobic capacity, right? If your diaphragm is constricted, you're not going to have as high of a aerobic output as you could otherwise. So when you arch in the bench press as well, you're opening up that whole front area, diaphragm, that whole thing. Exactly.
And it's the exact opposite of what you're doing in cycling. So in cycling, you're really crunched over. Yep. Benching, you're opening all that up and making the back super tight.
Absolutely. So
that's just another thing.
Right. So we're just, kind of focused on bench press right now in this discussion just because it highlights some of the misconceptions out there in the endurance world.
Sure.
And also some of the benefits of kind of thinking outside the box a little bit in terms of, we want to restore full ranges of movement of the body the way it's supposed to function.
Yeah.
And when we get our movement patterns in our primary sport get too locked down into one way of operating, that's great for principles of specificity, but it also can have some negative consequences to our performance long term. And so we just want to address those. And
before it gets too bad.
Exactly.
Yeah, it takes years to unwind what you've done. And then that comes up to another point. It's like people come in after years and years and years of bad posture, bad movement, all this stuff, and then expect it to be fixed in 3-6 months maybe, and it might take sometimes over a year or more.
Absolutely.
And that's something that you talked about as well. Like you were like, I don't know, but then it took you a little while to really understand the correct questions to ask.
Absolutely.
and the correct things to do, so your coach can help you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So each class in here is led by a strength coach. And even as a performance coach myself, I get a lot of benefit interacting with the strength coaches here because I have some ideas myself, but I'm able to interface with them and ask them questions and get a second opinion and get a different perspective on
100%.
things that then I can work with and kind of open my eyes to something different, try something new, see if it works for me. If not, move on to something else.
Sure.
And so, I've gotten a huge benefit from that. And yeah, it's taken a little while to get there, but one of my big issues coming in here was, I knew I had some major shoulder dysfunction from some neglect. I knew better. Still happened. And I just got to a point where I needed to address it. And it's taken a while.
Sure.
It's taken a long time to unwind, but I'm getting there. And
you're getting better each time.
and it's a huge benefit to my health and well-being and out on the bike. So.
Absolutely. And I think that's funny that you talk about, it's not really funny, but what you talk about with the strength world, or the endurance world, how their mindset is like so focused on being super specific on their training. The same thing is found with powerlifting and all these other strength aspects. You're only going to get better if you cross train. And I'm not saying go do CrossFit. What I'm saying is like do your specific thing. Like powerlifters, I used to just rag on my guys I used to train with. None of them would ever do any cardio. None of them would do any like dynamic movements. They're all 1-1-1. That's it. They're all doing that. And all of them are not doing it anymore because they're injured, hurt, or they just got super frustrated because they weren't progressing. And I was like, dude, if you have better general physical preparedness, you're going to be better as a whole.
Absolutely.
So same thing with the cyclist. You need to just cross over and do some strength training. Strength training people need to cross over and do some endurance work as well.
Absolutely.
So, good for it.
Yeah, I would say, and the other thing is don't get so locked into everything has to be cycling specific in the movement pattern. We actually don't want to over mimic the cycling movement patterns in the gym because we want to restore full ranges of motion and we want to challenge the body to move in slightly different patterns
and become stronger in those movements.
And so it's definitely coming into a gym like the Strength Warehouse, the first priority is to get higher quality movement in full ranges of movement pattern. And then start to get stronger. If you start to get stronger in a dysfunctional movement pattern, you're going to run into problems.
It's like building a house on a broken foundation. You're just going to exaggerate whatever you have that's an injured part. Or something that doesn't move correctly. It could work its way into an injury.
Exactly. And
so that's why, a lot of times, in our on-ramp processes and stuff like that, we're trying to address these types of things up front, so we don't just say, hey, you want to join a class today? Cool. Jump on in there and let's see how it goes. And then you break your shoulder off. That's not going to work out very well.
And I say as an endurance athlete coming in here, you probably have a set program that you're following outside of the gym already. And so coming in here, you have a unique perspective of you already have a lot of self-awareness. And so I would encourage everyone to have some ownership over that. And so when you come into the class is say like, okay, well, I kind of know what's sort of nagging me, what kind of movements I'm maybe struggling with. As you go through the classes, like own that and kind of like, take charge of that and ask a coach, hey, I'm struggling with this piece of it, or I know I've got some issues here, what can I work on? And they'll give you recommendations of exercises to swap out in terms of the program that's on the board.
Like if there's something that doesn't work well with you, like say it's a lunge, it's not good with your body. Or hey, I know that this exercise does this, cool. Or whatever, we can swap it out for you.
So it's, but that takes you kind of owning that and asking the right questions of, hey, I'm struggling with this, or this isn't going quite right, or outside the gym, I'm experiencing this, what can I do? I personally have kind of a list of exercises that I do for my supersets when I'm in here, which are the two blocks of training we do after the main set. And so, I hit those because I know what I personally need to work on, and it's not always what's on the board. And so,
makes sense.
That's totally fine, and it's in with the sort of methodology of the gym and the class, which
it's not like you're going to be doing sets of biceps on a leg day.
Absolutely.
Right? You're going to be doing something that's like similar to what we're doing, but it's going to be maybe just slightly different. That's going to give you more optimized training for what you're trying to do.
Exactly. You might be doing a B stance RDL that with a kettlebell in the back leg arm because it promotes internal rotation of the hip, which is something that cyclists generally need to work on.
Don't really have that.
You might do that instead of just a regular barbell RDL.
Yeah.
So it's a variation that's going to work on something that you need to focus on, but it's in the same family of the exercise that everybody else is doing.
Exactly.
In the gym.
Exactly. Cool. All right, man. Well, what should somebody expect coming into this seminar? Like, we only have 20 spaces available.
Yeah.
We're gonna have like a kind of a pre-registration type thing. December 2nd, I think we said it was, right, around 11:30.
Yep.
So what should they expect?
Yeah, I'd love to take this opportunity to just talk about how a cyclist could use a gym like the Strength Warehouse to get the most out of their training.
Yeah.
And that's going to be kind of the theme of it.
Sure.
And talk about just sort of at a high level the benefits of strength training year round.
Yeah.
How to fit it into a periodized training methodology outside of the gym, and then how to sort of leverage the training format of the Strength Warehouse, whether you're doing it here in your home gym or somewhere else, but this concept of a dynamic warm-up, one main set, and then just a couple supersets afterwards. It makes it very efficient. You can knock it out in 45 minutes to an hour. Shouldn't take you more than an hour to do this kind of a workout. And then what kind of things would should you be looking for and tweaking and focusing on in terms of movement patterns, specific adaptations to get the most out of that time spent.
I love it. Yeah. One thing that we chatted about a couple weeks ago as well was, as endurance athletes, they don't want to pack on a ton of muscle.
Yeah.
And I hear it all the time. People come in and they're like, no, it's not for me because I don't want to pack on tons of muscle. You have gotten super strong and only actually net like a couple of pounds, right?
Yeah, I've actually lost weight, gotten lower body fat percentage. Yeah. My lean muscle mass has gone up. Yeah. And I was already fairly lean to begin with, so
for sure.
We're not talking like I had a lot to work with to begin with, but that has helped me stay lean and get a little leaner without having to over focus on being in a huge calorie deficit.
Yeah.
Because my lean muscle mass has gone up, my metabolism has gone up, so I haven't had to really deprive myself, and I just think that's a huge benefit that is often overlooked.
100%.
So your calorie intake is actually going up, your metabolism has gone up because your lean muscle mass has gone up, but you're actually operating in a slight net deficit in terms of calorie balance as a result. So it's like a lot of times when you're going to calorie restrictions, it feels like you're super depriving yourself.
Absolutely.
If your output's going up and your resting output's going up, psychologically it's a totally different game. And so that has been a huge benefit for me.
That's great. We talk about that as well in this seminar.
Yeah, so we can talk a little bit about that. Cool. Nutrition, a little bit about just weight in general, because that's a huge topic in endurance
100%.
sports.
You don't want to be carrying around 50 extra pounds of muscle or fat. Like, you just don't want to.
And we can talk a little bit about some of the physiology around timing of workouts and how to mix strength training into an existing schedule, but that hugely impacts the muscle synthesis cycle, and that's the piece where you're not going to pack on tons of muscle. Sure. You're not going to come out looking like a bodybuilder. I guarantee you, if you're doing more than 6 hours of endurance training outside the gym, which if you're an endurance athlete, I guarantee you are. Yeah. If you're doing a minimum of that, your body will prioritize the endurance side of things, because that's where you're spending the most of your time. Yep. And so it will always gravitate towards the response that of the greatest stimulus. Yeah. And so that's the stimulus you're giving it in terms of proportion, and it's going to respond to that more than the strength training in terms of muscle synthesis, things like that. So it's something to realize that it's a very outdated mindset to think that lifting weights for 3 hours a week, 2 to 3 hours a week is going to somehow turn you into a bodybuilder. It's not. I mean, I wish, if you guys figure out how to do it, please let me know. I've been trying for years. I mean, I'm definitely bigger than I was, but it's definitely not going to turn you into a bodybuilder. There's specific ways to do that. We talked about that as well. But great, man. I'm super excited to have this. I think it's going to be a great thing for the community.
And then obviously the Bend community, and then the endurance world as well. But yeah, we'll give you guys some more information. We'll be sending out emails, and then there's a message board you're going to be posting on.
Absolutely.
What was that called again?
Yeah, it's the Bend Cycling Google group.
Okay, cool.
And that's a large portion of the cycling community in Bend.
Great.
Subscribes to that. So
Cool.
yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm super glad to have you on the podcast again, and can't wait to do the seminar. It's going to be super fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nate.
Absolutely. All right, guys, have a great day. We'll see you on the other side. Thanks for joining us on this epic journey of strength. If you liked this episode, please leave us a review and share with a friend. To stay connected, hit that subscribe button. All right, until next time, go heavy or go home.